The night my grandmother turned 80, my family insisted on a Zoom toast, 30 faces, same brittle smiles. While I was thanking everyone, my webcam caught a reflection in the glass cabinet behind me, in my kitchen. My fiancé leaned down and kissed my sister. No one on the call said a word. They didn't have to. I run compliance. Silence is my favorite alarm. I muted, took a screenshot, and opened a new case file. In public. I am Mara Quinn. At 29, I am the youngest head of compliance in the history of Larkspur Wellness Group. Larkspur is a Greyford-based behemoth built on the lucrative, intangible concept of holistic corporate well-being. We sell curated mindfulness apps, ergonomic office furniture with $1,000 price tags, and subscription boxes of organic, joyless snacks. My job is to be the friction. I am the internal auditor, the policy enforcer, the one who asks, "Can you prove that?" In meetings where everyone else is manifesting outcomes. My office is on the 14th floor, a glass box that overlooks the other glass boxes of Greyford. I am respected, I am mildly feared, and I am, above all, precise. I live my life by the same principles. I verify, I document, I mitigate risk. My condo is scrubbed. My finances are balanced to the penny, and my engagement to Tyler Voss was, I believed, a fully vetted partnership. Tonight, the protocol was domestic. My grandmother, Althea Quinn, was turning 80. She is the matriarch of a family that excels at performance. The Quinns are experts in the appearance of success. We are a family of brittle smiles, unspoken resentments, and aggressively cheerful holiday cards. The pandemic had normalized our dysfunction, scattering us into the digital safety of a Zoom call, 30 squares, my uncle from Scottsdale, already too tan, my cousin in Seattle, virtue signaling with a Save the Whales poster, and my mother, presiding from the original West Alder homestead, trying to conduct the digital chaos. I logged in at 7:05 p.m., 5 minutes late, to establish that I was busy. I sat at my dining table. I did not bother with a virtual background. Virtual backgrounds are a form of misrepresentation. Behind me, the glass doors of an antique china cabinet reflected the back half of my kitchen. The cabinet was Althea's. She gave it to me when I got the Larkspur promotion, saying, "You're the only one who'll keep the glass clean." The kitchen light was on. The reflection was sharp. A perfect, slightly distorted mirror of my granite countertops and the stainless steel refrigerator. "Mara, there she is," my mother's voice, artificially bright. "Mara, darling, give a toast to Grandma." I unmuted. I saw my own square light up. I raised my glass of water, which I hadn't had time to replace with wine. "Happy birthday, Althea. 80 years is an incredible milestone. We are all..." I was looking at the camera, at the small green light, projecting sincerity, but my peripheral vision caught the reflection. The door from the garage opened. My blood went cold. Not hot, cold. It was the feeling I get just before an audit. The sudden, silent drop in temperature when I realize the numbers I've been given are soft. It was Tyler. Tyler Voss, my fiancé, the man whose work emergency text was still sitting, unread, on my phone. "So sorry, baby. Gray Spire is on fire. Have to pull an all-nighter. Kiss Althea for me." A direct, falsifiable statement. He didn't see me. He didn't look toward the dining room. He moved with a familiar, proprietary glide into my kitchen. And she was there. June, my sister. She was leaning against the counter, a pose I recognized from her Instagram feed. Casual, but calculated, designed to highlight her curves. She was wearing one of my silk robes, the expensive one, the one I kept for myself. I kept talking. My mouth formed the words, my professional training taking over. "So proud of the family you've built, your legacy." In the glass, June's arms looped around his neck. It was a lazy, familiar gesture, an established pattern. He didn't hesitate. He leaned in, his body blocking her from my direct view. but their faces perfectly visible in the reflected glass. His lips met hers. My brain, trained for discrepancy, analyzed the data. This was not a greeting. This was not a mistake. This was not impulsive. The duration of the kiss was 4.7 seconds. His hand, the one wearing the watch I bought him for our pre-engagement, settled on her hip, his thumb stroking the silk, pulling her closer. Her head was tilted, her eyes closed. It was a kiss of devastating routine. My face on the webcam did not change. I continued to smile. I finished the toast. "We love you very much." My right hand, hidden below the frame, moved to the keyboard. Command plus Shift plus 3. The sharp, clean thwack of the Mac OS screenshot. The file appearing on the desktop. Evidence secured. My mouse arrow, steady, moved to the red microphone icon. Mute. It moved to the camera icon. Stop video. My little box went black. Immediately, the family's performance continued, unbroken. "Oh, we lost her." My aunt's voice. "That's Mara for you. Always dropping off? Probably a work thing." "Althea, open your gift. We sent it." Digital confetti exploded over my black square. My absence was just another minor inconvenience, easily papered over. In the kitchen, the reflection showed them pulling apart. They were laughing, whispering. June swatted his chest. He grabbed her hand. They were comfortable. I felt nothing. This is the lie I tell myself in a crisis. I felt a sudden, sharp, hydraulic pressure behind my eyes. I felt the pulse in my throat. A sick, heavy beat. But I am Mara Quinn. I do not leak. I process. I dragged the screenshot into a secure, encrypted folder. I opened it. The image quality was poor. It was a reflection, through old glass, captured by a 1080p webcam, but it was enough. I zoomed, I adjusted the gamma, increasing the brightness of the midtones. The light from my refrigerator, which was slightly open, illuminated June's face. She was smiling into the kiss. I renamed the file, Zoom 80th RAW, PNG, the first piece of discovery. I opened a new text file, a log. I am meticulous about logs. 2014-01. Zoom call initiated. 2017-30. Subject T. Voss. Fiancé key partner. Grayspire. Entered residence. Stated location. Per text, 1902. Was Grayspire Media Offices. 2017-45. Subject J. Quinn. Sister, observed in residence. Wearing my property. 2018-02. Physical contact. Prolonged kiss. Initiated. 2018-07. Contact terminated. 2018-10. Screenshot. Zoom 80th RAW. PNG captured. Video audio feed terminated. This is how I handle a crisis. I create a timeline. I establish the facts. I remove the emotion. They were still in the kitchen. I heard the pop of a cork, a wine bottle, my wine, the expensive Pinot Noir I was saving. The audacity, the sheer, flagrant, operational disregard. This wasn't just betrayal. It was an invasion. It was theft. My phone buzzed, face down on the table. I flipped it. A work notification. Calendar. Quarterly ethics. Town hall. Mandatory. Fry. Octa 31, 10:00 a.m. My town hall. The one I hosted every quarter. It was my platform to remind the entire company and our key partners exactly what the word integrity means. It was my stage to define the bright, hard lines between right and wrong. I opened the invite. I scrolled down the list of external attendees' key partners. There he was, Tyler, Voss at Grayspire Media, com. A conflict of interest, a breach of trust, using my home, my resources, while misrepresenting his location to me, his fiancé and the head of compliance for his primary client. Oh, this was not a domestic dispute. This was a catastrophic failure of governance. The laughter from the kitchen was louder now. June, That high, breathy laugh she used when she wanted something, or when she had just gotten it. I looked at the screenshot. I looked at the meeting invite. This would not be resolved in a tearful confrontation in the hallway. It would not be a screaming match. It would not be therapy. It would be an audit. The Zoom call was ending. "Good night, everyone. Good night, Mara, if you're still there." I unmuted. My voice was perfectly even. "Good night, Grandma. Happy birthday. Love you." I clicked Leave Meeting. The 30 squares vanished. The screen went blessedly blank. I closed my laptop. I heard the clink of glasses from the kitchen. A toast. I stood up, walked to my desk in the spare bedroom, and opened my work laptop. The machine whirred to life, its cool blue light illuminating my face. "Thank you," I whispered to the dark kitchen. "Thanks for choosing my stage." I opened a new file. Case, Echo Kitchen. This was going to be a very thorough review. I remained at my work desk. The spare room door closed. The sounds from the kitchen were muffled but distinct. The low murmur of his voice, the high, sharp note of her laugh. They were still there. They were drinking my wine. They were comfortable. This wasn't a hit and run. It was a hostile occupation. My family, the Quinns of West Alder, operates like a troubled mid-cap company just before earnings season. The public-facing statements are relentlessly optimistic. The brand is stability. The reality is a mess of toxic assets and undisclosed liabilities. Our unofficial slogan, usually deployed by my mother, is, "Everything is fine." This phrase is used to shut down any inconvenient discussion, from my father's early retirement, a layoff, to the cracks in the foundation of the West Alder house. We don't solve problems. We repaint the surface. The Zoom call was just another press release, a performance of cohesion for Althea's 80th birthday. June is the apex of this philosophy. She is our star product. To her 80,000 Instagram followers, she is Juniper Quinn, a wellness influencer peddling natural cosmetics and ethically sourced bath bombs. Her entire brand is built on a curated vulnerability that is, in reality, a fortress of narcissism. She is all soft focus, beige filters, and captions about living your truth. Her truth, historically, has involved leveraging my name. I remembered the calls, a local boutique. "June said you shop here all the time?" "I don't. A yoga retreat." "June mentioned you're head of compliance at Larkspur and thought you could sponsor our gift bags?" A clear conflict of interest. Each time, my mother would wave it away. "Mara, don't be so hard on her. It's just how the world works now. She's creative. Don't be so rigid. It's family." My mother uses family like a gag order, a non-disclosure agreement I never signed. But I learned, arguing with June is like arguing with a fog machine. It's pointless, and you just end up wet. Arguing with my mother is like arguing with a PR department. They just issue another denial. So I stopped arguing. I started documenting. I don't forget, I archive. Every text, every email where June creatively implied an association with Larkspur. Every request I had to formally shut down, it all went into a personal file. Not out of malice, but out of necessity. In my world, everything leaves a trace. You just have to know which log file to pull. The one time I broke my own rule, the one time I did argue, was 3 months ago. June decided Juniper Events LLC was her new venture. She wanted to be a preferred vendor for Larkspur Wellness. She wanted to plan our corporate retreats. She cornered me at Sunday dinner. "It's perfect. Mara, my brand is exactly your brand. We're synergistic." I said no. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, no. It's a conflict of interest. June, you are my immediate family. I cannot, by policy, engage you as a vendor." "But I'm not you, it's my company." "The policy is clear. It extends to immediate family members to prevent the appearance of impropriety." I wrote the policy. Her face tightened. The soft focus influencer vanished, replaced by the calculating woman I saw in the kitchen reflection. "You're just jealous," she hissed, low enough for only me to hear. "You just hate that I'm successful on my own." My mother stepped in. "Girls, everything is fine. Let's have dessert." The next day, June's Instagram feed featured a new post, a picture of her staring wistfully out a window. Caption: "Just a reminder that you should never let small-minded, boring people get in the way of your dreams. Some people only know how to say no. I only know how to say yes to the universe." It got 4,000 likes. And Tyler was supposed to be different. I met him at the Global Ethics Summit in Chicago. He wasn't a compliance officer. He ran strategy for Grayspire Media, one of our largest marketing partners. He was charming, sharp, and he spoke my language. Our first dinner wasn't just small talk. It was a debate on the nuances of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. He talked about reputational risk. He understood that a company's greatest liability wasn't a bad product, it was a compromised ethic. He admired my clarity. He said he'd never met anyone so incisive. He knew the rules. He reviewed Larkspur's partner code of conduct. He signed it. He understood my job. He was vetted. I remember a fight we had, maybe 2 months ago. I had just flagged one of Grayspire's proposed campaigns for using language that was dangerously close to making unsubstantiated medical claims. "Mara, it's just marketing," he'd said, exasperated, pacing our living room. "You're killing the creativity. Can't you just turn it off? Just for one night? You bring this audit energy home. It's exhausting." I stood by the window, looking at the Grayford skyline. "I can't turn it off. It's who I am." He sighed, then came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. I know. I respect it. But leave work at work. Leave the policy at the office. This is home." The memory was so clear it tasted like acid. I looked at the closed door of my spare room. "You were right, Tyler," I whispered to the wood. "I shouldn't have brought my work home. You brought my sister into it instead." I looked back at the screen. Zoom 80th RAW, PA. All those old warnings, all those vague anxieties, the times June's perfume lingered in his car, the late nights at the office that were just a little too frequent, my mother's insistence that I be more flexible. They were just feelings. They were data points without a pattern. Static on the line. I am a professional. I do not act on static. But that screenshot, that 4.7-second kiss, reflected in Althea's china cabinet. It wasn't static, it was a beacon. It was the corroborating evidence that turned all the old, isolated incidents into a clear, actionable pattern of behavior. The blurry maybe just snapped into high-definition is. June's vague captions about her boring sister weren't just petty, they were a diversion. Tyler's speech about reputational risk wasn't a shared value, it was a script. I heard the front door open and close, softly. He was leaving. A moment later, a thump as June went into my bedroom, collapsing onto my bed, the bed Tyler and I shared. The impulse was primal, to storm into the kitchen, to throw the screenshot in his face, to drag her out of my bed by her hair, to scream, to demand, to break Althea's china, piece by piece. My hands clenched. The hydraulic pressure was building. I closed my eyes. I breathed. Screaming is messy. The data gets corrupted. The narrative is lost. A domestic dispute is, he said, she said. It's complicated. It's emotional. I am not emotional. I am precise. I will not scream in my kitchen. I will not give them the satisfaction of my tears. They have made this a personal matter. I will make it a professional one. I looked at the town hall invite. They chose to commit their breach in public, on a recorded Zoom call, reflected for my entire family to see, even if they chose not to. So I will deliver the findings in public. Not in a home, where emotion rules, but in a boardroom, on a stage, with a microphone, in front of our CEO, our legal counsel, and the partners who pay his salary. On a stage where there is a camera, a transcript, and a binding corporate policy. I opened a new document, Town Hall Ethics Script Draft V1. I began to type. They want to live their truth? I'll present mine. with exhibits. I slept for 2 hours and 40 minutes, according to my wearable, a restless, shallow sleep. I woke before my 5 o'clock a.m. alarm, the image of the reflection already playing in my mind. I skipped my run. I drank black coffee. Standing in the kitchen, the 2 wine glasses, my Rydell glasses, were in the sink, stained red. June's silk robe was crumpled on the floor of my bedroom. I photographed it, tagged the file Evidence Property 01, and then bagged it like a biohazard. I was at the Larkspur Wellness Tower in Grayford by 6:15 a.m. The lobby was empty, smelling of industrial cleaner and the faint, citrusy wellness scent we pumped through the vents. At the security turnstile, I paused. My normal habit, when I'm distracted or carrying too much, is to tap my badge, walk halfway through, realize my laptop bag is caught, and tap it again, a double tap. It's a sloppy human error that I've tried to train out of myself. This morning, I was not human. I was a procedure. I pressed the badge against the reader. One clean. Electronic click. The light turned green. I pushed through the style. A single, valid entry. No anomalies for the system to log. I am Mara Quinn, head of compliance, arriving early. That is the only data point anyone will find. My office on the 14th floor was dark. The city was a grid of lights below. I didn't turn on the overheads. The glow of my 3 monitors was enough. I logged into the vendor management portal. My credentials gave me root access. Search. Vendor name. Juniper Events, LLC. 1 result. Status. Denied. Denial. Date. 3 months prior. Denial reason. Per policy. 4.7b. Conflict of interest. Immediate family of employee. Denial by M. Quinn. My own digital signature. I remembered the conversation. I remembered my mother's disappointed "everything is fine" when I told her I'd had to formally reject June's application. I clicked the History tab. This is where the metadata lives. This is where people who only look at the surface never go. Submission timestamp. 3 months prior. 14/32/01 submission IP 72.4.3109. I ran the IP through our threat intel database. It geolocated to a residential address. The provider was Comcast. The registered location was West Alder, the suburb where my parents live. Plausible. June was living there at the time. I opened a second portal. The partner access log. This tracks every non-employee who logs into our systems. Consultants, partners, vendors. Search. Partner org. Grayspire Media. Search. User. Voss. Tyler. A long list of logins. Tyler was in our system daily, reviewing marketing assets, accessing shared drives. I filtered the log by date, matching it to the week of June's submission. Login. 3 months prior. 14/01/15. IP 72.4.3109. Login. 3 months prior. 14/37/02. IP 72.4.13109. Login. 3 months prior. 15/12/40. IP 72.4.13109. My breath hitched. Just once. It was the same IP. He wasn't at his Grayspire office. He wasn't at my condo. He was at my parents' house, logging into the Larkspur Partner portal. I looked at the timestamps. June's submission at 14:32. Tyler's login just before it, at 14:01, and just after it, at 14:37. He wasn't just aware of her submission. He was with her. He was guiding her. He was actively using his status as a key partner, on site at my family home, to help her bypass the very conflict of interest policy I had explained to him. He was trying to find a loophole. He was helping her lie. The reflection in the cabinet was not the beginning. It was just a milestone. This was a conspiracy. My fingers flew. I needed more. I needed the why. I drafted an email to the director of IT. Subject: Urgent. Compliance audit. Log test Q4. Body: Ken. As part of our quarterly integrity testing, I am running a simulation to test for data exfiltration vulnerabilities. Please pull all server-side email logs, headers and attachments, no body content required, for the partners group for the last 90 days. I also need a full export of access logs for the new vendor intake portal for the same period. Please place the encrypted export on the Secure Compliance share drive. This is a Level 1 test. Do not discuss with your team. It was a perfectly routine request. Ken would see Compliance Audit and Level 1 and execute it without a single question. He would assume I was testing him. I wasn't flagging Tyler. I was flagging an entire group that Tyler belonged to. It was the digital equivalent of a full net catch. He'd be in there, but so would 50 other people. Plausible deniability. Next, the trap. I opened our corporate templates. I found an old, expired request for proposal, RFP, for on-site wellness activations. I copied the text. I created a new document, RFP Larkspur Wellness Q1 Draft. I made it look legitimate, filling it with budget projections, timelines, and requirements. Then, I created the canary. In the footer, in 2-point font, I typed a string of text, colored RGB 255, 255, 255, pure white, invisible to the naked eye. The string was JVT Echo Kitchen 001, June, Voss, Tyler. This was my watermark. If this document ever appeared in a formal bid, or was forwarded, I would Ctrl+A, select all, and my hidden tag would be revealed. But that wasn't enough. I needed to know when they opened it. I drafted a new email. To Juniper, events@gmail.com, BCC, Tyler, Voss at GraySpireMedia.com, subject, Larkspur Wellness, Q1, event RFP opportunity. Body. Dear Ms. Quinn, following a review of our vendor database, we are inviting a select group of potential partners to review an upcoming RFP. Your firm was flagged for a secondary review. Please find the draft document attached. We value your discretion. Any dissemination of this document outside your organization will result in immediate disqualification. Regards, the Larkspur Procurement Team. I did not send it from my email. I sent it from the anonymous procurement@larkspur.com alias, which my team controlled for exactly these kinds of sensitive communications. Before I hit send, I inserted the real trap. I used our compliance software to embed a 1x1 tracking pixel into the email's signature. The moment that email was opened, a request would be sent to my secure server, logging the time, the IP address, and the device type. I hit send. The bait was in the water. Now for the venue. I opened the corporate calendar. I found my existing quarterly ethics town hall and clicked edit. I changed the title. Quarterly Ethics Town Hall was too boring. I renamed it Ethics in Action, a case study in transparency. I checked the mandatory attendee list, all employees. Good. I went to the optional list. I added the entire GraySpire Media Partners distribution list, and I added one more. Anya, Locke at Larkspur.com. Anya Locke was our general counsel. She was sharp, ruthless, and had zero tolerance for risk. She was the only person in the building I trusted. I sent the updated invite. This meeting has been updated. Finally, I drafted a separate, privileged memo to Anya. I attached no files. I used no names. Subject: ATTN, General Counsel, Privileged and Confidential, Case Echo Kitchen, Body. Anya, I am opening a preliminary investigation into a potential breach of Policy 4.7b, Conflict of Interest, and Policy 8.2, Partner Code of Conduct. Initial findings show a coordinated effort between a principal at a key partner firm, GraySpire Media, and an unregistered, family-related vendor, Juniper Events, LLC, to bypass procurement controls. Data suggests shared IP addresses during submission, attempts to collude on pricing, and potential data exfiltration. I am currently gathering further evidence. I will require a legal hold to be placed on the GraySpire email group pending further review. I am flagging this for your awareness. I will present the full findings at the Ethics in Action Town Hall on Friday. This is a high-risk matter. M. I did not mention a kiss. I did not mention a reflection. I did not use the word fiancé or sister. I presented her with a clear, undeniable, and expensive corporate risk. Fraud, collusion, a breach. Anya would see the financial and legal liability. She would not see the personal betrayal. She would authorize the legal hold immediately, giving me access to the email logs I'd already requested. I leaned back. The sun was starting to hit the Grayford skyline. My phone buzzed. A text from Tyler. "Hey, last night was insane. So much work. I'm exhausted. Need to see you. Coffee tonight? Love you." The word love looked grotesque, a piece of corrupted data. I looked at the text. I looked at my case file. Echo Kitchen. I saved the engagement ring for last. It was my final exhibit. I did not reply to Tyler's text. A response creates a new data point. A lie. I'm busy. Is an engagement. Silence is a void. It forces the other party to transmit again, to reveal their position. I minimized the window. His "love you" was a floating piece of malware. I focused on my own perimeter, my condo. My home is a smart home. It is a network of sensors and logs. I pay for premium cloud storage on all of it. I opened the application for my front door camera. Grayford condo main door. I scrubbed the timeline back to the previous evening. 8:12 p.m. Just before the kiss. There. 20:12:04. The feed is high definition, filmed in unsettlingly clear infrared. Tyler. He stood on my doorstep, looked both ways down the carpeted hall, and then turned to the keypad. He did not use his fob, which would have logged his specific user code. He typed in the master guest code, 8181, my high school track number. I remembered the conversation, 6 months ago. "Just text me the master code," he'd said. "Just so I can photograph it, in case my fob battery dies. It's just a safety backup." He hadn't photographed it. He had memorized it. It wasn't a backup. It was a stealth key. It was access without attribution. He knew the alarm wasn't set because he knew I was on the Zoom call, performing my role as the dutiful granddaughter. He slipped inside. I downloaded the 30-second MP4 file. I tagged it, Evidence Doorbell Entry TVOS, MP4. Next, the HomeKit logs. My iCloud is a fortress. I share nothing, but the house itself keeps a diary. I pulled the log from the hub. 20:12:04. Front door. Unlocked. Keypad. 20:12:09. Hallway sensor. Motion detected. 20:17:30. Kitchen sensor. Motion detected. He joins June. 20:21:50. Bedroom sensor. Motion detected. This was after the kiss, when I heard June walk into my room. 20:35:12. Front door locked. Manual. Total duration of his presence, 23 minutes, 8 seconds. A 23-minute all-nighter. The lie was so clean, so specific. I screenshotted the log. Evidence HomeKit log, PNG. Now the bait. The canary document I had sent from the anonymous procurement alias. I opened the compliance dashboard that tracks the 1x1 pixel. Campaign. RFP Larkspur Wellness Q1 Draft. 2 hits. Ping 1. Open time. 07:15:02. Today. IP address 72.44.13109. Device Apple iPhone 14 Pro. Geolocation West Alder, Comcast Residential. It was her. My parents' house. June had woken up, seen the email from procurement, and the phrase secondary review was too tempting to ignore. She opened it immediately. I waited. I drank my cold coffee. I watched the logs. Ping 2. Open time 08:31:44. Today. IP address 198.51.105. Device Desktop Windows NT Chrome browser. Geolocation Grayspire Media. 18th floor Grayford Tower. Tyler. The sequence was as clear as the video. 1. June opens the email. 2. She immediately forwards it or calls Tyler. 3. Tyler arrives at his actual desk and opens the document I watermarked. They were collaborating, this morning. They believed they had found a secret back channel, a way to bypass the boring head of compliance. They had no idea they were simply clicking a button in my trap, confirming their collusion in real time. As if on cue, a notification popped up, a new message in the secure, anonymous inbox I managed for the entire company. Ethics, hotline at larkspur.com. From Anonymous. Subject, a thought on winning body. I'm just an employee who wants to see Larkspur succeed. I know compliance is important, but sometimes we are too rigid and miss great opportunities. There is a fantastic local events company, Juniper Events, that really understands our brand. They're being blocked by red tape. Maybe you should tell your team to be less rigid and give them a chance. We could be saving money. Less rigid? My mother's exact words. June's entire philosophy. The message was amateur. A transparent attempt to manufacture internal pressure. They were trying to use my own ethics hotline against me. I traced the submission IP. Starbucks, public Wi-Fi Grayford lobby. The coffee shop in the lobby of his building. He'd sent it on his way into the office. Just before he opened the Canary document, it was sloppy. It was arrogant. I saved the file. Evidence hotline coercion, email. I opened the master case folder on the encrypted drive. Case, Echo Kitchen. I dragged the files, one by one, into the void. Zoom 80th RAW, PNG. The Kiss. Evidence doorbell, entry TVOS. MP4. The Lie. Evidence HomeKit log. PNG, the timeline. Evidence IP cross-ref. The collusion, evidence canary log, text T, the trap, evidence hotline coercion. The threat. It was a perfect, contained, irrefutable narrative. It was 9 a.m., time to brief the stakeholders. I sent a 10-minute meeting request to Anya Locke, our general counsel, and Dave Friedman, our head of HR. Subject, urgent compliance matter. Prep for Friday. Location, my office. Now. They arrived together. Anya, with her legal pad, all impatience. Dave, already rubbing his temples, as if sensing the HR nightmare to come. This better be fast. Mara, Anya said, standing. It will be? I did not turn to face them. I kept my eyes on my monitor. This is a containment briefing. I've uncovered a significant breach of our partner code of conduct and a conspiracy to commit procurement fraud. Dave groaned. Who? Grayspire Media. Specifically, Tyler Voss. Anya stopped tapping her pen. Voss. That's our main media account. That's a 7-figure contract. Correct, I said. He has been actively colluding with an unregistered vendor, Juniper Events LLC, to bypass our conflict of interest controls. The vendor is run by a relative of an employee. I kept the pronoun neutral. An employee, not me. Dave sighed. Whose relative? One of yours? It doesn't matter, I said. The policy is objective. I have IP logs showing them accessing our systems from the same location to file the application. I have a Canary document, sent this morning, that they have both opened, confirming active collusion, and I have a submission to the ethics hotline from a public hotspot near Grayspire's office, attempting to coerce my office into being less rigid. They are trying to build a false case for approval. I let the word fraud hang in the air. Adultery is messy. Fraud is clean. Fraud has a number attached to it. Anya's eyes went cold. This is bad. This is high risk. What's your play? They are arrogant, I said. They believe they are smarter than our controls. They have both been invited to the Ethics in Action town hall on Friday. Dave looked horrified. Mara, you can't call him out in front of the whole company. The liability. I'm not calling anyone out, I interrupted. I am presenting a hypothetical case study. I turned to face them. A case study on vendor fraud. I will walk through the evidence, step by step, the IP logs, the track document, the hotline submission, all anonymized. Of course, I'm simply educating the company on how our integrity systems work. Anya understood first, a small, grim smile. And if the subjects of the case study happen to be in the room, they identify themselves. Exactly. This is where I need you. I've prepared a 3-branch scenario. I clicked, and a flowchart appeared on my main screen. Branch 1. They deny. They sit through it. Then try to take it offline. Manage the narrative. Claim it's a misunderstanding. Anya, you will state for the record that the matter is now under active legal review and no further contact is permitted. Dave, you will have a memo ready terminating Gray Spire's contract for cause. Branch 2. They confess. Unlikely, but possible. They try to apologize privately. We treat this the same as Branch 1, but we add a formal investigation into their billing history. Branch 3. They deny publicly. This is the high-risk one. One of them stands up, calls it a lie, gets emotional. I'll handle that, Anya said. The moment they speak, they've identified themselves. I will instruct them to cease, as they are now subjects in an internal investigation. Security will escort them out. Good, I said. I need you both in the front row, visible. This is not my decision. This is a corporate action. Dave still looked pale. This is incredibly aggressive. Mara, what's the personal element? I need to know the risk. The personal element, I said, my voice dropping to a register of pure ice, is that they targeted my office. They assumed the head of compliance would be flexible because of a personal relationship. They were wrong. This is my response. Anya Locke closed her notebook. We're aligned. We'll be there. After they left, I walked to the main auditorium. It was empty, dark, smelling of stale coffee. I went to the AV booth and called up the slide deck. The standard template was larkspur orange, bright and cheerful. I deleted it. I set the background to a sterile, flat white. In the bottom right corner, the larkspur logo, rendered in 90% gray. When I put the evidence on that screen, the logs, the screenshot of the email, the IP addresses, it will be the only color in the room. There will be no corporate branding to soften the blow, no smiling stock photos, just a white wall and the facts. I stood on the stage, at the podium, and looked out at the empty chairs. I visualized the room. Anya, here, Dave, here, the CEO, and them, third row, center. I would leave the reflection, the kiss, for the very end. The personal element, saved for last. The rest of the town hall would be pure, cold, objective procedure. Tyler had wanted the prenuptial agreement. It was, he'd insisted, for my benefit. I remembered the dinner, 6 months ago, at a restaurant where the wine list was thicker than a textbook. He'd leaned across the table, all sincerity and calculated earnestness. Mara, he said, taking my hand, we need to talk about a prenup. I'd paused, my fork halfway to my mouth. Oh? Yes, look, I know it's not romantic, but it's practical. I'm an agency guy. My income is volatile. Gray Spire is growing, and my stake in it is going to be significant. He was posturing. He was already seeing himself as a Grayford Titan. I want to protect you, to show you that I'm not after the stability you've built. I want this to be an equal partnership, fully transparent. Transparent. He'd used my word. I'd smiled. A contract. I understand contracts. Send me the draft from your lawyer. His lawyer sent it. It was a standard, boilerplate document, focused entirely on protecting his future earnings, his Gray Spire stock options, and his assets. It was all about money. I read it, and then I added my own section. It wasn't about money. I make my own. It was about governance. I drafted it myself, using the same language I'd used for our executive compensation contracts. I titled it Clause 8, Professional Integrity and Reputational Harm. My addition was complex, specific, and surgical. It stated, in summary, that our personal union was contingent on the professional integrity of both parties, especially as it related to our intertwined business relationship. Clause 8A. A material breach of this agreement, constituting grounds for immediate, for-cause termination of the engagement, shall be defined as any act of willful professional malfeasance. It went on, including but not limited to the deliberate concealment of a conflict of interest, conspiracy to commit procurement fraud, or any action that exposes Larkspur Wellness Group or its officers, hereinafter the employer, to significant financial or reputational harm. He was a key partner, I was an officer. Our relationship was a walking, talking conflict of interest, one that we had managed, I thought, through scrupulous disclosure. This clause merely formalized that disclosure. And then I added the remedy. Clause 8B. In the event of a termination for cause under Clause 8A, any and all gifts exchanged during the engagement period, valued at over $1,000 USD, shall be immediately forfeit and returned to the original purchaser. This specifically includes, but is not limited to, the 3.5-carat round brilliant cut diamond engagement ring. I sent the red-line document back to his lawyer. Tyler had called me, laughing. "My God, Mara, are you auditing our engagement?" "I'm just clarifying the terms of the partnership," I'd said. He signed it the next day, at a notary's office. He was polite, charming. He performed the act with a flourish, the expensive pen gliding over the paper. He didn't read Clause 8 again. He was too busy being the magnanimous fiancé, the modern man who was totally fine with his powerful partner's quirks. He saw it as a formality. I saw it as a loaded weapon, locked in a safe. Now it was Tuesday morning, the day after the log gathering. I was in my office when a delivery man arrived, struggling with a vase that could double as a small umbrella stand. It was packed with white lilies, dozens of them. They were funereal. The scent was cloying, a heavy, sweet smell that instantly coated my sterile office. The card was small. "Thinking of you. Need to see you. T." It was not an apology. It was not a confession. It was a summons. It was an attempt to erase the weekend, a grand gesture intended to overwhelm my data-driven brain with a show of emotion. It was a bribe. I looked at the vase. I looked at the card. He had not said, "I'm sorry." He had not said, "We need to talk." He had said, "Thinking of you?" A lie. He had been thinking of June, in my kitchen. I picked up the delivery slip, still affixed to the glass. Grayford Blossoms, a QR code for the order. I pulled out my phone. I scanned the code. It opened a generic order tracking page. Order 4519B. Status, delivered. I picked up my desk phone. "Grayford Blossoms, this is Sandy." "Hello. Sandy, this is Mara Quinn. I'm the head of compliance over at Larkspur Wellness. We just received a very large arrangement, Order 4519B, and I need to process the invoice for our records. But the slip is damaged. Could you possibly confirm the purchaser name and the last 4 digits of the credit card used?" It was a standard corporate pretext. People dispute expenses all the time. "Oh, sure, honey," Sandy chirped. "Let me pull that. 4519B. Oh, what a pretty one. That was ordered by a Juniper Quinn. And the card. Let's see. It was an American Express ending in 1005. My blood didn't just go cold. It froze solid. Tyler's Amex. The one I knew by heart. The one he used for business. He hadn't even ordered the flowers himself. He had outsourced the gesture. He and June had, presumably, discussed it. Mara's being quiet. She must be upset. Send her flowers. The big ones. They were collaborating on the cover-up. The audacity was a physical force, pressing the air out of my lungs. This was not a moment of weakness. It was a joint operation. "Thank you, Sandy. You've been very helpful." I hung up. I screenshotted the order page. I saved the audio file from my desk phone, which, as part of our compliance protocol, recorded all calls. Evidence cover-up flowers, MP3. I looked at the lilies. They were an insult, a piece of mocking, perishable evidence. I walked to the industrial copier, the one our legal team uses. I logged into my secure drive and pulled up the PDF of our signed, notarized prenuptial agreement. I scrolled to page 12. Clause 8. I highlighted the entire section. Command plus P properties. Paper size. A3, 11.17.5 inches. Scale, 250%. Print. The machine word, a massive, poster-sized sheet emerged, hot to the touch. The words were stark, black, and undeniable. Deliberate concealment of a conflict of interest. Exposes Larkspur Wellness Group to significant, reputational harm. Engagement ring. Shall be immediately forfeit. I folded the sheet with legal precision. Twice, I slid it into a heavy, black, leather-bound binder, the kind I used for presenting findings to the board of directors. It was Exhibit A for a meeting that hadn't happened yet. It was now Thursday, 24 hours until the town hall. His silence was screaming. He had sent the flowers. He had sent the texts. I had responded to none of them. He knew I was in the office. He knew I was online. My lack of action was, to him, a more terrifying threat than any emotional outburst. I needed to make sure he'd be there. He had accepted the updated meeting invite. Ethics in action. A case study in transparency. But he was a flight risk. He could, at the last minute, manufacture another all-nighter. I called his desk line at Grayspire. Not his mobile. I wanted the record. He picked up on the first ring, his voice a slick performance of relief. Mara. Oh my God. Mara, I've been calling. I've been texting. I was so worried. Are you okay? Did something happen? I let his performance hang in the air. I did not respond to the questions. Tyler, I said. My voice was the one I used for external auditors. Polite, flat, devoid of all temperature. I'm calling to personally confirm your attendance tomorrow. A pause. The slick relief curdled. My attendance? What are you? The town hall, 10 a.m. Ethics in action. I see Grayspire has accepted the invitation as a key partner. I just wanted to confirm you would be the one attending. You are listed as our priority guest. He was processing. He was expecting rage, tears, accusations. He was getting a meeting confirmation. He let out a short, sharp laugh. It was the most arrogant sound I had ever heard. Oh, right. The town hall. Jesus. Mara. You had me scared. Yes, I'll be there. Wouldn't miss it. He paused, and the arrogance crested. Staging another one of your little ethics plays? Going to scare the new interns about sharing their passwords? Ethics plays. He had dismissed my entire career, my entire belief system, as a little play, a farce. I looked at the black binder on my desk. I looked at the white lilies, which I'd already instructed facilities to remove. No, Tyler, I said into the receiver. His voice was still smiling. No? It's not a play. I paused. I let him wait for it. It's a transcript. I pressed the end call button on my screen. The line went dead. I did not hang up on him. I simply concluded the communication. The kiss was the what. It was the indisputable, time-stamped fact of the betrayal. But in my world, the what is just the alarm. You don't take action until you know the why. Why in my kitchen? Why on the night of my grandmother's Zoom? Why was Tyler, a man who worshipped at the altar of reputational risk, so reckless? The answer, I knew, would not be in my heart. It would be on the server. It was Thursday, 7:00 a.m., less than 30 hours to go. Anya Locke's legal hold had been executed. The email logs for the entire Grayspire Media Partners group for the last 90 days were now in a secure, encrypted container on my drive. It was terabytes of data, a digital ocean of corporate chatter. I didn't search for love or June. I searched for Juniper events. The server word, my search, which should have returned 0 results in a professional context, returned a chain, one chain. The chain did not originate with Tyler. It did not originate with June. It originated with a Larkspur employee. Mark Jessup, a junior, ambitious, slightly naive coordinator in our marketing department. The kind of employee who wants to be a hero, who wants to be seen as a disruptor. The first email was from Juniper, events@gmail.com to Mark, sent 2 months ago. Subject: Larkspur Synergy. Body: Hi Mark, we haven't met, but I'm Juniper Quinn, and I'm a huge fan of the wellness seminars you're putting on. My brand is all about that vibe. I'd love to chat about how my company, Juniper Events, could take these to the next level. Let's find some synergy. Mark, flattered, replied, Thanks, Juniper. We normally go through our preferred vendor list, but I'm always open to new ideas. June's reply came back an hour later. This was the one. Body: That's the problem with preferred lists. They get stale. You need something fresh, something authentic, to make it easy. I've attached my rate sheet, and just to show we're serious about partnering, we can build in a 10% facilitator's fee, standard practice, for your time. Let's make this happen. My vision tunneled. Facilitator's fee. She'd put a kickback in writing. She'd offered a 10% bribe to a junior employee. This was not the act of a naive influencer. This was procurement fraud. Mark, to his credit, got scared. I don't think I'm authorized to discuss that. That's a compliance issue. And then, the shark entered the water. Tyler, who had been silently BCC'd by June, forwarded the entire chain to Mark. From Tyler. Voss at Grayspire Media, to Mark, Jessup at Larkspur, CC, Juniper, events@gmail.com, subject, intro, Larkspur plus Juniper, Grayspire endorsed partner. His email was a masterpiece of corporate misdirection. Mark, great to connect. I'm looping in June Quinn of Juniper Events. Grayspire is officially partnering with Juniper as our exclusive activation vendor for the Q1 wellness push. We find their on-the-ground, authentic brand presence to be a perfect match for the new Live Well campaign we're designing for Larkspur. They are now, for all intents and purposes, a Grayspire subcontractor. I'll be brokering this deal personally to ensure seamless integration. That facilitator's fee June mentioned is just our standard agency commission, which we're passing through to you as a cross-departmental efficiency bonus. Totally standard. Let's get a SOW drafted. We'll run the billing through my Grayspire account to keep it clean. Let's get this on the books before the Q4 freeze. Best T. My hands were perfectly still. I read it 3 times. Subcontractor, brokering this deal. Run the billing through my Grayspire account. The bomb. The screenshot of the kiss was just the fuse. This was the explosive. This was not a passionate mistake. This was a calculated criminal conspiracy. Tyler was using his legitimate 7-figure Grayspire contract as a Trojan horse. He was smuggling June's fraudulent, unqualified, family-conflicted company into our payroll, disguised as a subcontractor to bypass my denial. He was going to bill Larkspur for June's inflated, copy-pasted services. Grayspire would take a cut. June would take a cut, and Mark would get a 10% bribe, all laundered through Tyler's clean Grayspire account. The all-nighter at the office, the kiss in my kitchen. It wasn't just a tryst. It was the sealing of a deal. They weren't just lovers. They were co-conspirators. Now, I needed to see just how lazy they were. June, arrogant and energized by the fake RFP I'd sent her, had replied, from Juniper, events@gmail.com, to procurement@larkspur.com, subject, Larkspur, wellness, Q1, event RFP, opportunity. Body, thank you so much for this. As discussed with my partners, we are perfectly positioned for this. See attached proposal. So excited for the synergy. Attached. Juniper Events Larkspur Proposal Q1. PDF. I opened the PDF. It was exactly what I expected. Beige color palette. Soft focus photos of June meditating. And the rate sheet. Curated wellness experience. Full day activation. $50,000. Includes keynote speaker. Mindfulness meditation zone. Juice bar. I pulled up my own vendor files. I opened the proposal from Alder Creek Events, our actual, legitimate, long-term partner. I put the two PDFs side by side. My heart didn't pound. It simply stopped. June had copied and pasted the entire service description from the Alder Creek proposal, word for word. And in her haste, in her supreme, narcissistic arrogance, she had copied the typo. Mindfulness Meditation Zone. She hadn't just changed the logo, she had changed the price. Alder Creek's price, $30,000. June's price, $50,000. The $20K difference was her profit. I had it, all of it. The evidence was complete. The IP logs showing their physical collusion, the Canary document showing their digital collusion, the email chain showing the kickback and the conspiracy, the PDF proposal showing the fraud, and the screenshot showing the motive. I stood up and walked, not to my desk, but to the auditorium on the 14th floor. It was empty. I went to the AV booth in the back, the command center. I logged into the presentation system. I started a new slide deck. Template, blank. Background, RGB 255, 255, 255, sterile white. I began to build the presentation. Slide by slide, I was a prosecutor building a case. Each slide was an exhibit. Slide 1, blank. Slide 2, a case study in procurement fraud. All data is real. All names and entities have been anonymized for this presentation. Slide 3, the anomaly. Vendor and partner. Screenshot of the IP logs. 72.44, 109. Next to 72.44, 109. Slide 4, the bait. The Canary document. Screenshot of the tracking pixel log. 2 pings, one from West Alder, one from Grayspire Tower. Slide 5, the coercion. The ethics hotline. Screenshot of the email. Be less rigid. IP traced to the Starbucks. Slide 6, the conspiracy. The kickback. Screenshot of June's email to Mark. The 10% facilitator's fee circled in red. Slide 7, the broker. The partner intervention. Screenshot of Tyler's email. Grayspire is officially partnering. Run the billing through my Grayspire account. Slide 8, the fraud. The proposal. The side-by-side comparison of the two PDFs. The typo. Mindfulness, highlighted in yellow on both. The price, $30,000 versus $50,000, highlighted in red. Slide 9, the policy. What we owe, policy. 4.7b, conflict of interest, policy 8.2. Partner code of conduct, slide. 10. The summary. A coordinated breach. A simple flowchart. Partner. Family vendor. Employee. $20K overcharge plus 10% kickback. I had 10 slides. A perfect airtight case. This was enough to ruin them both professionally. To terminate the Grayspire contract for cause. To put Mark on final warning. But it wasn't complete. It explained the crime, but not the context. It anonymized them. I needed them to know that I knew. I created slide 11. I opened the Echo Kitchen folder. I dragged the file Zoom 80th RAW, PNG onto the sterile white canvas. The image was dark, blurry, a reflection in glass, but it was clear enough. A man, a woman, a kitchen, a kiss. I added no text, no circle, no arrow. It was just there, the silent, personal witness, the fact that anchored the entire fraud. This slide was not for the company. It was not for Anya or Dave. It was for Tyler and June. It was the piece of evidence that proved this wasn't an impersonal audit. It was a finding of fact. I saved the file. Final presentation, PPTX. I looked at the slide deck. This was not a case study. This was not ethics in action. This was a verdict. I titled the deck, What We Owe Each Other at Work. I went back to the corporate calendar. I opened the town hall invitation, the one sitting on the calendars of 2,000 employees. I clicked edit. I deleted the title. I typed in the new one, Integrity Day. I hit send update. No one would know why. It just sounded positive, mandatory. I shut down the AV system. The stage was set. Friday, 9:45 a.m., the 14th floor auditorium. I was in the AV booth, running a final audio check. The microphone was live. The internal live stream was active. Feed status, green. The ticker already showed 400 remote employees had logged in early, waiting. I had designed the room. Normally, it was theater-style seating. I'd had facilities rearrange it overnight. The chairs were now set in a wide, shallow U. It was the configuration we used for depositions. It was intimate, and it was hostile. It ensured that every attendee was not just watching the stage, but watching everyone else. At the entrance, on a table draped in white linen, was the setup for a normal integrity day. 2 large, silver urns of coffee, an ice bin full of bottled water, and most importantly, the cookies. The cookies were my masterstroke of misdirection. They weren't the standard issue oatmeal raisin. They were the expensive shortbread biscuits from the bakery downstairs, the ones dusted with cocoa in the shape of the Larkspur Wellness logo. They were the cookies we served at award ceremonies and retirement parties. They were a signal of celebration. They were a lie. They were the prop that said, "Everything is fine. This is a recognition event." I watched from the darkness of the booth as the room filled. 9:50 a.m., the stakeholders arrived. Anya Locke, our general counsel, entered first. She moved with a sharp, impatient energy, grabbed a black coffee, and took her seat in the front row, far right corner. She opened her laptop and began typing immediately. A perfect performance of bored diligence. Dave Friedman, head of HR, entered next. He looked pale, his face slick with a light sweat. He avoided the coffee and grabbed a water, his hand shaking slightly. He sat front row, far left. He looked exactly like a man about to manage a catastrophic human resources incident. 9:52 a.m., Richard Vail, our CEO. He entered, looked at the U-shaped seating, and frowned. Richard hated compliance. He saw it as a bureaucratic anchor on his creative, fast-moving ship. I had invited him personally, via a one-line email. "Richard, I've uncovered a vendor-partner collusion scheme that represents a 7-figure liability. I am handling it Friday at 10. Your presence is required." He was here. He was the reluctant audience. He sat in the exact center of the U, the unwilling judge in a courtroom he didn't know he was entering. 9:58 a.m., Tyler. He didn't arrive with the crowd. He made an entrance. He strode in, not as an external partner, but as if he owned the place. He was in his preferred uniform, expensive dark jeans, a crisp white shirt, and a tailored blazer. The top button of his shirt was undone. It was his creative strategist costume, designed to separate him from the corporate drones. His eyes scanned the room, looking for me. I remained hidden in the darkness of the AV booth. He was searching for my mood. He was trying to read the room. He saw Anya. He saw Dave. He saw Richard Vail. I saw his stride falter, just for half a beat. This was not the audience he was expecting for one of Mara's little ethics plays. The presence of the CEO, HR, and legal in the front row was not normal. He recovered. He flashed a brilliant, confident smile at Richard, who ignored him. He took a seat in the third row, directly in the center, opposite the CEO. He was perfectly positioned. 10:01 a.m., 1 minute past the hour. The heavy glass door of the auditorium swung open, striking the wall with a quiet thud. Every head turned. June. She was not on the attendee list, but she had a temporary guest pass stuck to her silk blouse. She was, as always, a performance. She was the influencer, the creative, the synergy. Her hair was perfect. Her makeup was camera-ready. And her perfume. It hit the room first, a cloying, overwhelmingly sweet cloud of vanilla and something aggressively floral. It was a scent too rich, too loud for a 10 a.m. corporate meeting. It was the smell of a nightclub, and it was a violation of the room's sterile, coffee-scented air. She scanned the room, spotted Tyler, and beamed. She glided down the aisle and slid into the seat next to him. She leaned in and whispered something. He laughed. They were a unit, a power couple, sitting center stage, waiting for the show. They believed they were here to be praised, to be the Gray Spire-endorsed partner that was bringing new energy to Larkspur. It was time. I walked out of the booth, down the side aisle, and stepped up onto the low stage. The motion-activated spotlights hit me. The room fell silent. I saw Tyler lean forward. He was looking at me, really looking. His expression was a database of conflicting emotions. Confusion, that I had not responded. Arrogance, that he was here, and a flicker of something. Pity. He pitied me. He thought I was the woman scorned, forced to go to work and run a meeting after he had abandoned me. I stood at the podium. I clicked the small black remote in my hand. The main screen, which had been showing the Integrity Day logo, flickered. I leaned into the microphone. My voice was amplified, calm, and perfectly even. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here." I smiled. It was the smile I used for hostile witnesses in audits, the polite, professional smile that promised nothing but procedure. I know these meetings can feel mandatory. A few nervous chuckles. People were grabbing the logo-dusted cookies. So today, we're not just going to read from the handbook. I want to talk about something real. We're going to talk about a conflict of interest. It's a very normal, very human problem. It's the kind of thing that happens in every company. It's the kind of thing that happens in every family. The room relaxed. The word family made it hypothetical. The chuckles were warmer this time. They were thinking about their brother-in-law's resume, not a multi-million-dollar fraud. Tyler and June were smiling. They were in on the joke. "The policies we write aren't just rules," I continued. "They are a map for navigating these complex moments. They are about what we owe each other. What happens when that map is ignored?" I clicked. The main auditorium lights dimmed by 20%. The screen behind me became the brightest object in the room. Slide 1. What we owe each other at work. I stepped away from the podium, moving to the left side of the stage. It was a casual, conversational move. It was also a tactical one. It cleared the sight line. I was no longer blocking the screen. The presentation was now perfectly centered between me and them. "We all face friction," I said, my voice echoing slightly. "Moments where our personal relationships collide with our professional duties. It's not a crime. It's just a fact. The only requirement is transparency, disclosure. But what happens when we choose to conceal that friction? What happens when we try to build a business on it?" I looked directly at Tyler. He was leaning back in his chair now, arm draped casually over the back of June's seat. He was smug. He was untouchable. I pressed the button. Click. The slide advanced. The sterile white background, the stark black text. Slide 2. A case study in procurement fraud. All data is real. All names and entities have been anonymized for this presentation. The room, which had been shuffling with coffee cups and cookie wrappers, went completely silent. I watched Tyler. His smile did not disappear. It froze. The muscles in his jaw locked. He had just seen the word fraud in all caps on a screen in front of his CEO. June, beside him, was checking her makeup in the black mirror of her phone. She hadn't even looked up. The rest of the room was at full attention. They didn't know about Part 3. They didn't know this was Part 3. "Let's look at this case," I said, my voice dropping into a register of cool analysis. "It's a recent one. It involves 3 hypothetical players, a junior employee, a long-term trusted partner, and a new, unvetted vendor." I pressed the button again. Slide 3. The anomaly. Vendor and partner. The screen was stark. Just 2 columns of text. Vendor submission log timestamp. Date. 14/32/01. IP address. 7244-13109. Location. West Alder. Residential. Partner access log timestamp. Date. 14/37/02. IP address. 7244-3109. Location, West Alder, residential. "It begins here," I said. Two entities, claiming to be separate, logging into our secure portals from the exact same residential IP address, 5 minutes apart. The vendor is the family member. The partner is the associate. This is not transparency. This is collusion. Tyler's hand, which had been draped over June's chair, retracted. It fell into his lap. He was no longer smug. He was looking at the IP address, a string of numbers he probably didn't even know he had. He was doing the math. He was realizing this was not a hypothetical. June, finally, looked up from her phone. She looked at the screen, then at Tyler. Her expression was blank, confused. She didn't understand what an IP address was. Click. Slide 4. The bait. The canary document. We then tested this connection, I said. We sent a decoy RFP, what we call a canary document, to the unvetted vendor. This document contained a hidden watermark and a tracking pixel. The screen showed my compliance dashboard. Ping 1, 07:15 a.m., IP 72.44, stream 109, West Alder. Ping 2, 08:31 a.m., IP 198.51 100 Mike, Grayspire Media Tower. The vendor opened it at 7:15 a.m. 76 minutes later, the trusted partner opened the exact same file from their corporate office. This confirms they are not just associated. They are actively collaborating, in real time, on a bid they have not been cleared for. Tyler's face was pale. The color was draining from it, leaving a waxy, gray sheen under his expensive tan. He knew that second IP. It was his. June leaned in, whispering urgently, "What is that? Tyler? What is he talking about?" He didn't answer her. He was staring at me. His eyes were not arrogant now. They were hard. He was realizing this was an execution. Click. Slide 5. The conspiracy. The kickback. An email. The text was large enough for everyone in the room to read. From redacted vendor email. To redacted Larkspur employee. Subject. Synergy. We can build in a 10% facilitator's fee. Standard practice. For your time. A collective, audible gasp from the room. The word kickback was not used, but facilitator's fee was clear enough. This was bribery. This was the moment the entire room understood. The vendor then attempted to bribe a junior-level employee, I said, my voice cutting through the silence. The employee's name has been redacted. He is not at fault. He reported the email, as policy dictates. A small lie. Mark hadn't reported it, but I was giving him a lifeline, a way to save his career by cooperating with HR. My target was not the junior employee. It was the broker. Click. Slide 6. The broker. The partner intervention. Another email. From redacted partner email at Grayspire Media. To redacted Larkspur employee. CC. Redacted vendor email. Grayspire is officially partnering with Juniper. That facilitator's fee is just our standard agency commission. We'll run the billing through my Grayspire account to keep it clean. The trusted partner then stepped in, I said. He attempted to launder the bribe, reframing it as an agency commission. He offered to run the billing through his legitimate multi-million-dollar contract, effectively smuggling the unqualified, conflicted vendor in through a back door. I let that hang for a moment. To keep it clean. Richard Vale, the CEO, made a sound, a low, disgusted grunt. Anya Locke, our lawyer, was no longer looking at her laptop. She was watching Tyler. Her eyes narrowed. Tyler was looking at the screen. The blood had rushed back to his face. He was flushed, a deep, blotchy red. He knew his own words. June, next to him, finally understood. She recognized her name. Partnering with Juniper. She looked at Tyler, her eyes wide with panic. "Tyler, you said—" "Quiet," he hissed, his voice a low, vicious sound that carried in the dead silent room. Click. Slide 7. The fraud. The proposal. The side-by-side comparison. Vendor A, legitimate service, mindfulness meditation zone. Price, $30,000. Vendor B, conflicted service. Mindfulness meditation zone. Price, $50,000. The typo, mindfulness, was circled in red on both. And finally, the fraud itself, I said. The proposal submitted by the conflicted vendor was a word-for-word copy of our legitimate partner's work, including the spelling errors. The only change was the logo and a $20,000 price increase, which our trusted partner was attempting to broker. The room was stone. The smell of the sweet cookies on the back table was suddenly nauseating. Click. Slide 8. The policy. What we owe. Larkspur Policy 4.7b. All employees, partners, and vendors must disclose any and all personal or familial relationships that could create the appearance of a conflict of interest. The text was highlighted in yellow. The policy is clear, I said. It is not a request. It is a condition of employment. It is a condition of partnership. The issue is not the relationship. The issue is the concealment. I had presented the entire case. The crime was complete. The room was tense, waiting for the conclusion, for the what happens next. I looked at Tyler. He had his head down. He was staring at his hands. He was defeated. June was frozen, a mask of pure terror. But I wasn't finished. I had shown them the crime. I had not yet shown them the why. I had not shown them the moment I knew. Click. Slide 9. The screen was white for a split second, and then the image resolved. It was not text. It was not a graph. It was the screenshot. Zoom 80th RAW, PNG. Dark, blurry, reflected in glass, but undeniable. A man. Recognizable as Tyler. A woman. Recognizable as June. In my kitchen, his hand on her hip. Their lips locked in a 4.7-second kiss. It was the only sound in the room, a single, sharp, horrified intake of breath from 200 people. It was the sound of a corporate execution turning into a personal one. I heard June make a small, broken sound, like a stepped-on bird. Tyler's head snapped up. He didn't look at the screen. He looked at me. His face was no longer red. It was a void. The arrogance, the confidence, the charm. It was all gone, stripped away. All that was left was the raw, ugly realization. I had been there. I had watched them. I let the image sit on the screen for 10 full seconds. I let them all see it. I let Richard Vale see the partner who was in my home with my sister. I let the entire company see the context of the fraud. Then, I spoke. My voice was not loud. It was not angry. It was slow. It was precise. Transparency, I said, my voice echoing in the terrible silence, is not a feeling. It is not an abstract. It is data. It is the log file. It is the email header. It is the timestamp. It is the image. I looked from Tyler to June. They were trapped in the spotlight, pinned by the U-shaped seating, with 200 pairs of eyes on them. It is what is done in public, even when you think you are in private. I turned to my stakeholders. Anya Locke stood up. It was her cue. Thank you, Mara. Dave Friedman, HR, stood up. He and 2 other HR managers began to move down the aisles, passing out a single-page, pre-printed memo. It was the corporate statement on reinforcing our vendor policies. It was the cover story. Anya looked at me. I gave a single, slight nod. This was the moment. Branch 1. They would be terminated. But I wanted to give them the choice. The final turn of the screw. I looked back at Tyler and June. This was a case study, I said, my voice returning to a normal conversational volume. A hypothetical, but the data is real. The behavior is real. I looked directly at them. My first moment of direct personal acknowledgement. If there is any misunderstanding, I said, my voice laced with a cold, sharp civility. If any part of this data is incorrect, now would be the time to correct the record, in your own words. I was offering them a chance to confess, to speak. June was crying, silent tears streaming down her face, ruining her camera-ready makeup. Tyler, Tyler was looking at me with a pure black hatred I had never seen before. He knew what I was doing. I was giving him a microphone to seal his own fate with. He said nothing. He stared at me. I held his gaze. "No," I said. "No corrections?" He did not move. He did not speak. "Then the data stands," I said. I looked at Anya. "The data stands." That was the signal. It was done. The screen went black. The auditorium lights rose, not to full brightness, but to a cold, 50% gray. The show was over. The room was suspended in a state of collective, horrified shock. 200 people had just witnessed a public execution of a man's career and his engagement, and they were trapped, sitting in a U-shaped formation, unsure if they were witnesses or jury. I picked up the black, leather-bound binder from the podium, the one containing the single poster-sized page. I stepped off the stage. The floor was concrete, stained a dark gray. The sound of my heels striking the surface was the only sound in the room. Click, 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 a metronome, counting down the last seconds of his life as he knew it. I did not walk quickly. I was not angry. I was an auditor, walking to a workstation to collect a final piece of non-compliant evidence. I walked down the short aisle, into the center of the U. I passed the front row. I saw Anya Locke watching me, her face a mask of grim approval. I saw Dave Friedman, who looked like he was going to be physically ill. I walked to the third row. He was still sitting there. Tyler. He was paralyzed, his body rigid, his skin a mottled, waxy gray. He was staring at the blank screen where the screenshot of his betrayal had just been. June was next to him, her body seized by a silent, violent tremor. Her sobs were high and thin, the sound of a trapped animal. "Tyler," she was whispering, over and over. "Tyler, make her stop. Make her stop." He didn't, or couldn't, move. I stopped directly in front of their row. They were forced to look up at me. I did not look at my sister. She did not exist in this procedure. I looked at Tyler. I extended my arm and placed the heavy black binder on his lap. The weight of it made him flinch. "Page 12, I said. My voice was low, not a whisper, but a cold, clear, private directive. "Clause 8, the integrity clause you signed." He stared at the binder as if it were a snake. "This is my formal notification, delivered publicly," I continued, my voice flat. "I am terminating our engagement, for cause, per the terms we both agreed to." June let out a choked wail. "Engagement? Mara? No." I ignored her. I held out a simple, black, letter-sized envelope. I placed it on top of the binder. "Clause 8B, I said. "The remedy. Return all engagement gifts. You know the terms. The ring, immediately." As I stood there, my hand extended, Anya Locke's voice boomed from the podium behind me. She had taken her cue. "Thank you, Mara, for that illuminating presentation on procedural integrity." Her voice was amplified, sharp as a razor, and utterly devoid of emotion. As of 10:17 a.m., Larkspur Wellness Group is placing an immediate and total suspension on all contracts, service agreements, and pending invoices with the entity Grayspire Media. This suspension is for cause, due to a material breach of our partner code of conduct. Tyler's head snapped toward the stage. The blood drained from his face. This was it. This was the shot he hadn't seen coming. The ring was an insult. This was his career. Anya wasn't finished. "The matter is now with General Counsel. All communications from Grayspire are to be routed through my office. Any employee contacted directly by a representative of Grayspire," she paused, and her eyes found Tyler in the crowd, "will be in violation of this legal hold." She had just, in front of the entire company, forbidden anyone from speaking to him. "Furthermore," Anya continued, "we are referring the entity Juniper Events LLC and its principal, Juniper Quinn, to our external counsel for investigation into fraudulent representation and conspiracy to commit bribery." "No!" June shrieked, the word tearing out of her. "No, I didn't. It was a fee. He said it was a fee. Tyler, tell them. She grabbed his arm. Tyler, tell them. He was frozen. He was staring at me, his eyes black with a hatred so pure it was almost beautiful. He said nothing. He didn't look at her. He didn't defend her. He let her burn. At that moment, Richard Vale, the CEO, stood. He buttoned his jacket. He did not look at Tyler or June. He looked at me, and then he addressed the room. Mara Quinn did exactly what she was hired to do, he said, his voice a flat, final judgment. She identified a threat, and she protected the company. She set the standard for integrity. Let this be the last time we need a lesson this public. He turned and walked out the side door. The verdict was given. As he left, 2 uniformed security guards who had been waiting in the hall entered. They were large men, polite, and impassive. They moved with a quiet, practiced efficiency. They walked past me. They stopped at June's row. I pulled the tacky guest pass from June's silk blouse. The adhesive ripped a small thread. I handed the pass to the taller guard. Please escort Ms. Quinn from the building, I said, my voice gentle. She's concluded her business here. No, please, June shrieked, clawing at the chair. I'm a partner. I'm with Gracespire. Tyler. The guards took her by the arms. They were firm, not violent. They lifted her to her feet. Tyler, say something. You promised. You said we were a team. You said... He did not look at her. He stared at the envelope on his lap. She was half dragged, half walked up the aisle, her sobs echoing, hysterical. You're just jealous. You're jealous. That's all this is. The glass doors closed behind her. Silence. Dave Friedman, head of HR, stepped up to the podium, his hands visibly shaking. As Ms. Locke stated, this is now a legal matter. He was trying to bring the temperature down, to reassure the terrified employees. I want to add, the Larkspur employee involved in this case study, whose name was protected, will be given a final written warning, but also enrolled in our mandatory ethics counseling program. We are a company that believes in correction, not just punishment. He was giving a life raft to Mark Jessup and a signal to the room. I am not Mara. I am the good cop. The room was still silent. No one moved. They were all watching me and Tyler. I turned my back on him. I walked back to the stage, to the podium. I systematically unplugged my laptop. I unplugged the USB drive that held the presentation. I wound the power cord in a perfect, tight circle. I placed the laptop, the cord, and the USB into my briefcase. I closed the snaps. Click, click. The evidence was secured. I turned back to the room. 200 people, staring. We continue working, I said. This meeting is over. It was a dismissal. People began to move, slowly, as if waking from a trance. They stood. They gathered their bags. The sound of hushed, frantic whispering filled the air. They filed out of the auditorium, none of them making eye contact with me, and none of them looking at Tyler. I waited. Anya and Dave waited by the door. In less than 3 minutes, the room was empty. Except for him. He was still sitting in the 3rd row, alone, a man on a desert island, surrounded by empty chairs. He looked at the black envelope. He looked at his left hand, the hand that had held my sister's hip, the hand that had signed the prenup. It was shaking, a violent, uncontrollable tremor. He tried to grip the ring with his other hand, but his fingers were slick with sweat. He fumbled, trying to get purchase on the diamond. He finally twisted it, hard, pulling it over his knuckle. He picked up the black envelope. He opened the flap. His hand shook so badly he had to guide it with his other. He dropped the ring into the envelope. I heard it, a tiny, tinny clink, the sound of 3.5 carats hitting cheap paper, the sound of a multi-million-dollar fraud, a 7-figure contract, and a 6-month engagement all dying at once. He stood up. He did not look at me. He placed the envelope on the empty chair. He turned, his shoulders slumped, and walked out of the auditorium, a ruined man. I walked back to the 3rd row. I picked up the envelope. It was heavy. I walked back, not to the podium, but to the AV booth in the back. The technician was still there, his face pale. "Is the live stream still active?" I asked. "Yes, ma'am," he whispered. "We're still hot. The remote employees, they're all still watching." Good. I did not look at the technician. I did not look at the empty room. I looked directly into the red glowing light of the main camera. I was speaking to the archive. I was speaking to the permanent record. I did not hold up the envelope. I did not show them the ring. They just needed to see my face. "Integrity Day," I said, my voice calm and final. "Ends here." I looked at the technician. "Cut the feed." I cut the feed. The technician, a young man from the AV team, looked at me, his face pale, as if he'd just witnessed a public execution. He was waiting for an order. "Clear the booth," I said, my voice perfectly flat. "Wipe the local machine. The presentation file is not to be retained." He nodded, his hands fumbling for the USB drive. "Yes, ma'am. Wiping it now." I didn't wait to watch him. I turned and walked out of the darkness of the booth, into the main auditorium. It was a boneyard. Empty chairs, stray coffee cups, half-eaten celebration cookies, and the lingering, sickly sweet perfume that June had worn, a scent that now smelled like panic. Anya and Dave were gone. The security guards were gone. The CEO was gone. The corporation, having identified and expelled the virus, was already moving on. I pushed the heavy glass door and stepped out into the 14th floor lobby. The silence was immediate, a pressure change. The auditorium had been thick with unspoken horror. The hallway was just empty. This corridor is my favorite place in the building, a 100-foot wall of pure glass. It overlooks the heart of the Grayford Financial District. It's a place of perspective, a place to see the grid. It was just past 10:30 a.m. A cold, aggressive October rain had begun to fall. It wasn't a drizzle, it was a sheet of water, lashing the windows, as if the sky were trying to scrub the city clean. The sharp edges of the neighboring skyscrapers were bleeding into the gray sky. The rain streaked down the glass, making the world outside look like a page of text written in italics. The words sliding, unreadable. The sound was a distant, angry shh. I stood there, my briefcase in one hand, the black envelope in the other. I was just a shape reflected in the glass, a woman in a charcoal suit, staring at the storm. The adrenaline was beginning to fade, leaving behind that familiar, clean, cold feeling, the feeling of a case closed, the feeling of a successful audit. I thought, for a moment, about the look on his face, the look of pure, black, unadulterated hatred. He hadn't looked guilty. He hadn't looked sorry. He looked offended. He was offended that I had used his own tactics against him. He had built his career on perception, on charm, on synergy, on relationships. He used those relationships as currency. I had just demonstrated that a relationship is a liability, a quantifiable, auditable, and terminable liability. He had tried to play me, assuming I was an emotional, domestic partner. He forgot that I'm a compliance officer. First, last, always. My phone vibrated in my suit pocket, the single sharp buzz of a text message. Not a call. No one would dare call me right now. I pulled it out. The black screen was slick with a thin film of moisture. I realized it was my own hand. I'd been gripping the envelope so tightly my palm was sweating. I wiped my thumb on my jacket and unlocked the phone. One message, Althea. My grandmother, the matriarch, the 80-year-old woman who had presided over the Zoom call. Her eyes, even through the pixelated feed, missing nothing. She was the only one who had replied to my good night. She was the only one who had watched me watch them, the only one who hadn't pretended not to see. The text was 4 words. You did the right thing. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't sympathy. It was a verdict. From the only judge in the family whose opinion mattered, she, too, understood contracts. The family contract. The one June and my mother had breached for years. The one I had just unilaterally enforced. I looked at her words. You did the right thing. My thumbs, steady, hovered over the keyboard. I typed 2 words. In public. I hit send. It was an acknowledgement. It was a confirmation of the terms. She wasn't just right about the what. She was right about the where. This was never a private matter. The moment they brought their conspiracy into my home, onto my family's network, and then into my company's payroll, they had made it a public filing. I had simply organized the press conference. I turned my gaze from the window, back toward the auditorium. Through the glass doors, I could see the cleanup had already begun. The AV team was coiling cables. A different technician, not the one who had witnessed the event, was at the podium. He'd plugged in his own laptop. The giant screen, which 15 minutes ago had held the image of my personal betrayal, was now lit with the cheerful, obnoxious orange of the standard Larkspur corporate template. Q4. Marketing projections. A forward look. Someone had put on music, a bland, instrumental synth track. The room was being reset to factory defaults. The machine, having purged the virus, was rebooting. The integrity crisis was over. The memo had been distributed. The Grayspire name was already being scrubbed from the active partner lists. By Monday, it would be as if Tyler Voss had never existed. The corporation has no memory. It only has a ledger. I walked away from the window, down the empty corridor. I held the black envelope in my left hand. I could feel the small, hard, dense weight of the ring slide from one corner to the other. 3.5 carats. Round brilliant. VVS1. A spectacular diamond. He had been so proud of it, of the deal he'd gotten from a client. He had presented it to me on one knee, in my living room. A performance of tradition he knew I'd find archaic, but correct. I'd accepted it as a contract. He'd given it as a bribe. It was heavy, not the platinum, not the carbon. It was heavy with the weight of the lies, the weight of the 23 minutes he was in my home, the weight of the 10% kickback, the weight of the word mindfulness. It was heavy enough to remember. It was heavy enough to be forfeit. This was the end. There would be no epilogue. There would be no hysterical 2 a.m. phone calls, no texts from my mother. Mara, you are tearing this family apart. I had already blocked her number. There would be no furious emails from him, demanding his anything. I had Anya Locke. I had the legal hold. He was, effectively, a non-person. He had been ghosted by an entire corporation. There would be no apologies. They were irrelevant. An apology is an attempt to modify the emotional data. The factual data was immutable. There would be no negotiation. The terms had been set, in writing. 6 months ago, he had signed, I had executed. It was a simple, clean, contractual termination. I reached my office. The 14th floor was a morgue. A few heads popped up over cubicle walls and then immediately ducked back down, like prairie dogs spotting a hawk. They were terrified, not of me, but of the implications. I had just proven that no one was safe, that the rules on the wall, the ones they all clicked agree to without reading, were not jokes. They were traps. I entered my office. The glass walls felt, for the first time, like armor. I closed the door. The sound was a soft, final click. On my clean, empty desk, I placed my briefcase. Next to it, I set down the black envelope. From my bottom left drawer, the one with the biometric lock, I retrieved a single, gray, archive-quality cardboard box. It was 12 by 9 inches. The label, which I had printed at 8 a.m., was already affixed to the front. Case, Echo Kitchen, date, today's date, status, closed. I opened the lid. The box was empty, smelling faintly of acid-free paper. I picked up the black envelope. I did not open it. I did not need to see the ring again. It was just an asset, a reclaimed one. I placed the envelope in the center of the box. The only piece of physical evidence, the rest of it, the terabytes of logs, the emails, the video, the audio from the flower shop, was already on the legal hold server, triply backed up in our off-site data center, and firewalled. Access was restricted to me, Anya Locke, and the CEO. I put the lid on the box. The sound was a dull, satisfying thud. I put the box back in the drawer. I engaged the lock. The small green light on the sensor went off. I picked up my briefcase. I had one more meeting, an external audit of our Q3 financials. The work continues. I walked out of my office. The hallway was still empty. I walked to the main elevator bank. The polished steel doors reflected my image back at me. A tall, severe shape in a charcoal suit. My hair was exactly as it had been at 7 a.m. My face was composed. I thought, exactly like Mara Quinn, head of compliance. I pressed the down button. A soft ding announced its arrival. The doors slid open with a smooth, hydraulic sigh. The car was empty. I stepped inside. The doors closed. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. So drop a comment below and share your thoughts. Please subscribe, like the video, and support us by hitting the hype button so this story can be heard by more people.